Thomas
This is a
Bennett had
beautiful
built
place.
his fortune
Yes,
from nothing.
it's so pretty.
Now at 42,
Let's walk together.
with silver
Okay.
thread. Through his dark hair and the kind of quiet, confidence that comes from years of hard-earned success, he lived alone in a grand house on Maple Ridge. The place was beautiful, all high ceilings and light-filled rooms, but it echoed with emptiness. He'd lost his wife Sarah 3 years ago to cancer. They'd never had children. Sarah had always wanted them, but the timing never seemed right. First it was building the business, then it was her illness. Now Thomas walked through rooms that felt too big, ate dinners that tasted like nothing, and wondered what all the success had been for. His sister Margaret finally insisted he needed help around the house. "You can't live like this, Tommy," she'd said, using his childhood name. "The place is falling apart, and so are you." That's how Elena Martinez came into his life. She arrived on a Monday morning in early spring, when the dogwoods were just starting to bloom. Elena was 31, with kind eyes and work-worn hands. She was quiet, efficient, and she brought her daughter with her. Little Maya was 2.5 years old. She had her mother's warm brown eyes and curly hair that bounced when she walked. Elena explained apologetically that her regular childcare had fallen through, and she hoped Mr. Bennett wouldn't mind if Maya stayed in the kitchen while she worked. The child would be no trouble, she promised. Thomas had simply nodded. What did he know about children? That first week, he barely noticed them. Elena moved through the house like a gentle ghost, cleaning and organizing. Maya played quietly in the kitchen with her stuffed rabbit and a few worn toys. Thomas worked in his study, made his calls, reviewed his investments, and tried not to think about how silent everything was. But then something changed. It started small. Thomas would walk from his study to the kitchen for coffee, and Maya would look up at him with those wide, curious eyes. She didn't say anything, just watched him. The next day, when he passed through the hallway, he noticed her standing at the edge of the room, still clutching her rabbit, still watching. By the third day, she began to follow him. Not close, mind you. She kept her distance, staying several feet back like a shy little shadow. When Thomas stopped, she stopped. When he turned around, she'd quickly look away, suddenly very interested in her stuffed rabbit. It puzzled him. He'd never been around children much, and he certainly didn't know what to make of this tiny person who seemed fascinated by him. Elena noticed too, and she seemed embarrassed by it. "Maya, sweetheart, come back to Mama," she'd call gently. "Mr. Bennett is busy. You mustn't bother him." "She's not bothering me," Thomas found himself saying, surprising even himself. But Maya's following continued. Every day, whenever Thomas moved through the house, there she'd be, trailing behind him like a little duckling. She never asked for anything, never reached out to touch him, never even spoke to him. She just followed, watching him with those serious little eyes. One afternoon, Thomas was in his study when he realized he needed a file from upstairs. As he climbed the staircase, he heard the soft pad of small feet behind him. He turned, and there was Maya, 2 steps below, frozen in place. "Are you following me again?" he asked, not unkindly. Maya nodded solemnly. "Why?" She didn't answer, just hugged her rabbit closer. Thomas felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. A kind of tenderness, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. He continued up the stairs, and sure enough, Maya followed, taking each step carefully with her small legs. When he reached the top, he turned and watched her climb the last few steps. She looked so determined, so serious about her task of following him. "Do you want to see my office?" he asked suddenly. Her face lit up with a smile that made her look like pure sunshine. Thomas's home office upstairs was smaller than his main study, filled with books and old photographs. Maya walked in carefully, looking around with wonder. She stopped in front of a framed photo on his desk. "Who?" she asked, pointing with one small finger. Thomas's throat tightened. It was a photo of Sarah taken during their honeymoon in Italy. She was laughing, her blonde hair caught by the wind, looking so alive. "That's Sarah," he said quietly. "My wife, she's not here anymore." Maya looked at him with those wise little eyes that seemed too old for such a young face. She didn't understand death, but she seemed to understand sadness. She reached up and patted his hand with her tiny palm, just once. A gesture of comfort from someone who barely reached his knee. Thomas had to turn away so she wouldn't see his eyes filling. That evening, after Elena and Maya had left, Thomas sat in his study thinking about that small hand patting his. Such a simple thing, but it had cracked something open inside him. The next day, he found himself actually looking forward to Maya's following. He started taking longer routes through the house just to see if she'd keep up. She always did. One morning, he stopped in the hallway and turned around suddenly. Maya bumped right into his leg and fell backward onto her bottom. She looked up at him, startled but not crying. Thomas bent down, and for the first time, he really looked at her. At the threadbare state of her little pink dress, clean but worn thin from many washings. At her shoes, slightly too small, the toes beginning to show wear. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded and held up her arms. The universal gesture of a child wanting to be picked up. Thomas hesitated. He'd never held a child before. But something in her trusting face made him reach down. He lifted her carefully, awkwardly, and she settled against his chest as naturally as if she'd always belonged there. She was so light, so small. She smelled like baby shampoo and something sweet. She laid her curly head against his shoulder and sighed contentedly. In that moment, Thomas Bennett felt his heart, frozen for 3 long years, begin to thaw. Elena found them like that 5 minutes later. She looked stricken. "Mr. Bennett, I'm so sorry. Maya, come here right now." "It's fine," Thomas said, and he meant it. "Really, Elena, it's fine." But Elena looked worried as she took Maya from his arms. That evening, she approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Bennett, I need to explain something about Maya, about why she follows you." Thomas set down his newspaper. "Please, sit down. And call me Thomas." Elena perched nervously on the edge of a chair. "Maya's father," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "He left when I was 6 months pregnant. Never met her, never wanted to. It's been just the 2 of us since she was born." Thomas listened, his heart sinking as he began to understand. "I work 3 jobs, Mr. Bennett." Thomas. "Cleaning houses during the day, data entry at night from home, weekend shifts at a grocery store. Maya is with different sitters, different people, all the time. She never has stability. She never has a father figure," Thomas finished gently. Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. "When she sees you in your nice suit, being kind even though you're busy, living in this beautiful stable home, I think she sees what she's never had." "I'm so sorry." "I'll talk to her. I'll make sure she doesn't bother you anymore." "Elena, stop." Thomas's voice was firm but kind. "That little girl is not bothering me. She's helping me more than you know." He told Elena about Sarah then, about the emptiness and the silence, about how he'd been just going through the motions of living. "Maya following me around, it's woken something up," he said. "For the first time in 3 years, I actually feel something other than numb." Elena looked at him with tears in her eyes. "She asks about you, you know, at night before bed. She asks if we're going to the nice man's house the next day. You've become the most important person in her little world, and I don't know if that's fair to her or to you." Thomas thought about that for a long moment. About a little girl who'd never had a father, following around a man who'd never had a child. About 2 people trying to fill empty spaces in their lives. "What if," he said slowly, "what if it could be fair to everyone?" Over the next few weeks, Thomas began to change his routine.
Discuss this calmly.
He started working from home more, taking his calls in the kitchen where Maya played. He'd roll a ball to her during conference calls, making her giggle. He bought her new toys, good ones, and pretended not to notice Elena's protests. He took them both to lunch one Saturday, to a family restaurant where Maya could be loud without judgment. She sat in a booster seat next to him and very seriously explained to him the entire plot of her favorite cartoon. Thomas listened as if she were presenting a business proposal, nodding thoughtfully at all the right moments. Elena watched them with tears in her eyes. "You don't have to do this," she whispered while Maya was distracted by the crayons. "I want to," Thomas said, and he realized it was true. For the first time in years, he wanted something beyond just getting through another day. He started teaching Maya little things, how to count to 10. The names of colors. She was smart as a whip, soaking everything up like a sponge. When she got something right, she'd look at him with such pride that his heart would squeeze. One afternoon, Maya came running up to him with a piece of paper. She'd drawn something with crayons, a mess of colorful scribbles. "For you," she announced proudly. Thomas took it like it was made of gold. What is it? It's us! She pointed to a tall blue scribble and a small pink one. That's you and that's me! Thomas's vision blurred. It's beautiful, Maya. It's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. He had it framed and put it on his desk, right next to the photo of Sarah. Somehow, they belonged together. Margaret came to visit one Sunday and found Thomas on the floor of the living room, playing blocks with Maya. She stopped in the doorway, her mouth falling open. Tommy? She said, as if she didn't recognize her own brother. Thomas looked up and grinned. Actually grinned, something Margaret hadn't seen him do since Sarah died. Maggie, come meet Maya. Maya, this is my sister, your Aunt Margaret. Later, after Maya and Elena had left, Margaret pulled him aside. What's going on, Tommy? Really? Thomas told her everything. About Maya's following, about her father's absence, about how this little girl had brought him back to life. I want to help them more, he said. Elena's working herself to death. Maya deserves better. They both do. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that said she was seeing her real brother again for the first time in years. Then help them. You have the means, and it sounds like you have the heart too, finally. Thomas started slowly. First, he offered Elena a full-time position as his house manager, with a salary that would let her quit her other jobs. She was hesitant, proud, but he insisted. You'd be doing me a favor, he said. This house needs someone who actually cares about it. And Maya would have stability. One home, one place where she belongs. He converted one of the unused bedrooms into a playroom for Maya, filled with toys and books and a little table for coloring. When Maya saw it, she went very still, then whispered, For me? All for you, little one. She threw her arms around his legs, and Thomas felt something crack wide open in his chest. Love, he realized. This was what love felt like. He'd forgotten. The seasons changed. Summer came hot and bright. Thomas taught Maya to swim in his pool, holding her carefully while she kicked and splashed. He pushed her on the swing set he'd had installed in the backyard. He read her stories every afternoon, doing all the voices, making her laugh with delight. People in town started talking about the billionaire and the maid's daughter, about how they'd see them at the park together, or getting ice cream, or at the library. Thomas ignored the gossip. Let them talk. Maya was more important than any reputation. Elena pulled him aside one evening, her face serious. Thomas, I need to know. Why are you doing all this, really? He thought about it. About how to put into words something he barely understood himself. When Sarah died, I died too, in a way, he said slowly. I was just going through the motions. Then this tiny person showed up and started following me around.
And that's when I realized I was.
And she saw something in me that I thought was gone forever. She saw someone worth following,
sounds exactly like something
worth caring about. She gave me a reason to be that person again. Tears rolled down Elena's cheeks. She loves you. You know that, right? She talks about you like you hung the moon. I love her too, Thomas said, and saying it out loud made it real. I love her like she's my own. But she's not, Elena said softly, and someday she'll be old enough to understand that. To understand that you're not really her father. Thomas looked out the window at Maya, playing in her playroom, laughing at something on TV. No, I'm not her father. Her father was a fool who walked away from the best thing that could have happened to him. But I can be here. I can be the one who stays. If you'll let me. Elena wiped her eyes. You already are. As Maya grew, so did their bond. She started calling him Thomas at first, because that's what her mother called him. But one day, when she was 3.5, she slipped. They were reading together on the couch, her favorite book about a bear and his father. She pointed to the picture. Like you, Daddy, she said absently, then froze. Her little face crumpled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Thomas's heart stopped, then started again, beating harder than ever before. He gathered her into his arms. Maya, sweetheart, look at me. He tilted her chin up gently. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Whatever you want. I would be honored if you called me Daddy. Really. Her voice was so small, so hopeful. Really. She hugged him fiercely, and Thomas held her close. This little girl who had saved his life without even knowing it. He talked to Elena that night, his heart pounding. I want to adopt her officially, if you'll agree. I want to give Maya my name, my protection, everything I have, and I want to take care of both of you properly. Not as an employer, but as family. Elena cried, but she was smiling.
You're sure?
I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The legal process took time, but Thomas didn't care. Every day with Maya was a gift. He went to her preschool events, sat with the other parents, and beamed with pride when she sang in the little concerts. He put her artwork on his refrigerator. He learned to braid her hair, though his first attempts were comically bad and made both Maya and Elena laugh. On the day the adoption was finalized, Thomas threw a party. Margaret came, and Elena's family, and several of Thomas's old friends who'd fallen away during his grieving years. They gathered in the backyard on a perfect autumn afternoon. Maya wore a new dress, white with pink flowers, and she held Thomas's hand as the judge spoke the words that made everything official. When it was done, when she was legally Maya Martinez Bennett, Thomas lifted her into his arms. "I love you, Daddy," she said clearly for everyone to hear. "I love you too, sweetheart. Forever and always." Later that evening, after the guests had left and Maya was asleep in her bedroom, Thomas stood in his study looking at the photos on his desk. Sarah's picture was still there, her smile as bright as ever. Next to it was Maya's crayon drawing, and a new photo from the party, of Thomas and Maya laughing together. He thought about how life had surprised him, how grief had nearly destroyed him, but somehow in the end it had led him here, to this little girl who'd seen something in him worth following, who'd believed in him before he believed in himself again. Maya had followed him through the halls of this empty house, and in doing so, she'd led him back to life, back to love, back to purpose. He heard a small sound and turned to find Maya in the doorway, holding her stuffed rabbit, her eyes sleepy. "Bad dream?" he asked gently. She nodded and walked over to him. He picked her up, and she rested her head on his shoulder just like she had that very first time. "I got you," he whispered. "I'll always have you." "I know, Daddy," she mumbled, already half asleep again. "That's why I followed you. I knew you were the right one." Thomas carried her back to bed, tucked her in, and kissed her forehead. As he stood in the doorway watching her sleep, he thought about the day she'd first arrived with Elena, that tiny person, who'd looked at him and decided, for reasons he'd never fully understand, that he was worth following. She'd been right. They both had been. Sometimes the people we need find us in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes healing looks like a toddler with a stuffed rabbit, trailing behind you through empty rooms, filling them with life again. Thomas Bennett had built his fortune alone, but he would spend the rest of his life surrounded by love, all because one little girl had decided he was worth following, and he would spend forever proving she was right.